Oh y'all, I'm so excited. Today I want to introduce to you a new series on this channel, Oonaversity. In this school of sew, I'm going to teach you how to stitch from A to Z. That said, I'm going to jump into the deep end and show you how to insert an invisible zipper. I love them, and you should love them too. Let's go. Before we get too deep into this, I just want to give a little shout out to my social media marketing team, MomNDadInc, specifically CEO Dad, who came up with the title for this here school. I got my love of puns from my father, and I'm not mad about it. All right, enough chit chat. Let's get sewing. You're gonna need fabric, an invisible zipper, interfacing, pins, press cloth, ironing board and iron, scissors, thread, and needles, and a sewing machine, but that wouldn't fit in the frame, and a regular zipper foot. Here's mine. It's got these little grooves in it so the needle can snug up against the zipper coil. You could use an invisible zipper foot, but I find I can get closer to the teeth with a regular zip foot. Now here is your invisible zipper. What's cool about this is nothing shows in the dress once it's inserted except for the little zipper head. Here, let me show you. So you can see on this dress, all you see is the zipper head. You don't see that exposed regular old zipper. I now buy my zippers in every color of the rainbow because I want every dress to have a zipper head that matches all the colors of the rainbow. But you can easily paint, if you've got a white invisible zipper, you can easily paint the head of that zipper with some nail polish to make it match any color you want. Here is an all-purpose regular zipper, which is what most people learn on, to be honest. It has the zipper coils exposed. So you have to account for that when you are sewing a garment shut. Here, hold on a second. Let me see if I can find you a garment in my closet that actually has one of them regular zippers in it. Just hold on a second. No, not that one. Oh, maybe this one? Yeah, that's a good candidate. All right, I found one. This skirt. It's not really a standard zipper, nor is it a standard skirt. Here's my skirt, right? And this is the zipper. As you can see, the coils are hidden by the fabric. These are pretty coils though. So you have to account for that when you're using a regular zipper. You have to sort of stitch it in a different way. And you know what? I like to hide my zipper inserts, and that's exactly what the invisible zipper will do for you. Let's sew one up. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do before you do anything is interface the area where you are going to insert your zip. I heard this first from Erica Bunker, who wrote in a blog post, "I interface every zip every time," and I was like, wow, I guess I should do that. What does that even mean? Well, here's what it means. You got your garment. Of course, I'm mimicking my garment here. This is simply cut fabric. And you've got your interfacing. Now, the interfacing that I'm using is heat settable. I think that's a word. And it has glue on one side so you can fuse it to your fabric. It gives your fabric a little extra sturdiness, and in terms of the zipper, it gives it a little extra oomph, some protection against possible wardrobe malfunctions. And we want to avoid wardrobe malfunctions, huh? Don't we? Yeah. This is a tricot interfacing. It does not interfere with the hand of your garment. The hand refers to how the fabric behaves on its own. Most zip seam allowances are about 5/8 of an inch, so I'm going to cut my interfacing at an inch away from that straight however long I need it for the garment that I'm making. By cutting it an inch wide, I've got stabilization that extends past both edges of the zip tape. So we're going to cut 2 lengths out for both sides of the seam. Now we're going to get our ironing board and our unquote dress fabric. We're going to pretend like right here and right here is center back or side or whatever of whatever garment you might be inserting your zipper into. I know this fabric kind of looks the same on both sides, but we're interfacing the wrong side of the fabric. So you know what, let's just mark it W. Going to lay my interfacing right snug up against the edge of the fabric. Glue side down. Now we take our press cloth, our magenta press cloth, and we're gonna hit it with some steam. I'm gonna hold my iron in place for a good 10 seconds and let that heat set the glue. Don't touch it. You know when you baked cookies and you just took them out of the oven and you want to eat them now, and then you pick one up and it falls all apart in gooey goodness in your hands? I mean, that's actually a good thing. But yeah, that's what will happen here, and that's not a good thing here. Let it sit. Let it cool. Let that cookie set. That cookie will still be delicious when you do finally pick it up and eat it. Really wish I had a cookie. Thank you, Rob. It was like magic. We've got the seam allowance for our zipper tape all interfaced. Now we're gonna get ready to stitch it. Okay, let's take a look. We've got the wrong sides of the fabric here. Here's the top of the garment. Here's the bottom of the garment. You don't have to extend your interfacing further than your zip will extend because only the zip needs security. Now let's flip it to the right side. See, we've got our right side of fabric here. Underneath is our interfaced seam line. And now we're going to chalk mark our seam allowance on the right sides of the fabric. My allowance is 5/8 of an inch, which is pretty standard. There you go. And get that on both sides. Got our pins and our invisible zipper. We're going to start from the top of the garment. Unzip your zipper with the right side of the zipper facing up. Now we're going to take that left side of the zip tape and flip it over so the right side of the zip tape is facing the right side of the garment. You know what? Let's do that on a close-up. Right side of your zip tape, open it up, take that coil, flip it over so the right side of your zip tape is on top of the right side of the garment. I'm lining up the coil of my zip directly on that chalk line. And now we pin it down. You can see that the coil of my zipper is right along that chalk line. I'm going to sew from top to bottom so my pins are oriented with the heads facing the bottom of the seam, and I'm going to stop about 2 inches before the end of that interfacing. So let's just mark that with a pencil to remind ourselves where we're going to stop stitching. Bueno. Let's go to the machine. I've got my regular zipper foot attached. You can see the little grooves in there. My needle is able to fit in those grooves. Make sure your needle clears the foot before you sew. At this point, I've got my needle pretty much centered because I'm just going to baste the zipper in. I've got my stitch length at about a 5, and all I'm worried about here is being sure that the coils stay on that chalk line as I sew. we're getting to the point where we've got our chalk pencil mark where we're going to stop stitching. So just stitch on up to that and take a couple back stitches because we're going to remove this basting stitch later. And your first pass is done. You can see that the coils of the teeth are right on that chalk line that we marked. And now we're ready for our second pass. I'm moving my needle over to the very edge, the left edge of my regular zipper foot. You see how it's clearing that foot right at the edge? This way the needle is going to get right up on the teeth of my coil. I've shortened my stitch length to 2.5 and I'm going to back stitch at the start. As I sew, I'm going to roll the coil away with my fingers. That basting stitch is keeping my zip flat, so my needle can get right up against the groove and I can roll the coil away without any worry. And I'm stitching slowly, because listen, don't sew through a finger. Don't at me from the ER. So slow. You see, there's the coil. Roll it, stitch, and I'm stopping before my pretty finger gets up on the needle. And now we've come to our pencil mark where we're going to stop stitching, get on up to it, and back stitch right at that mark. And there we have it, our first line of basting stitching and our second line of permanent stitching right snug up against the coil. We're going to lay our fabric flat again with the right side up. There's the wrong side. Let's zip our zip tape closed so you can get an idea of what it's looking like, okay? Pretty. Take the other side of your fabric, right side's facing up. Let's unzip that tape. Now flip it over one more time so the right side of your tape is facing up, and flip it again so the right side of your tape is now on the right side of your fabric and the tops of the tape meet. We're going to pin that down, and this time my pin heads are going to face the top of the garment because we're going to sew from bottom to top. Now we come once again to ye old pencil mark, and we're going to add that mark to the side of the zip tape we are now working on. So that little pencil mark tells you where you are going to stop stitching on the other side of the zip tape so that the end of the zipper matches up nice and neat. Whew, you know what? I thought this was only going to take a minute. I wish I had something fizzy to drink. Yeah, just parched. Oh, thank you, Rob. All right, that was refreshing. Let's get back at it. Now we're going to stitch from the bottom of the seam to the top, so where we just marked our pencil mark, which is why we oriented our pins with the heads facing the top. It makes them much easier to remove. Drop that foot and let's sew our first line of basting stitches. Now we're going to start at our friend the pencil mark again. We got our needle moved to the edge, the left edge of our foot. The stitch length is back to 2.5 and we are ready to make this side permanent. Backstitch, roll that coil, and put those stitches down carefully. Check it out. out. Both sides of the zip tape are inserted. Here's the right side of the zip tape. Here's the wrong side of the fabric. Let's see how it looks zipped up. Check our work. Oh, it's so nice. Now we're gonna work on the end of the zip tape and close up the rest of that seam. Flip your garment over to the wrong side and pinch the zipper and seam, the whole shebang, closed. And right at the bottom where we stopped our second line of stitching, we're gonna chalk mark our stitching line, continuing from that permanent line of stitching on down with a 5/8 seam allowance. This line is going to help us when we stitch. Pinch that seam closed again, match those raw edges, including the zip tape, and throw a pin in just above where you stopped your lines of stitching. Now pull that zip tape out of the way, match the raw edges of the rest of the seam without the tape enclosed, and pin up the rest of the seam. Now we're ready to stitch, and we're going to start stitching about a 1/2 inch above where we stopped our second permanent line of stitching and continue all the way down that chalk line. All right, I've got the foot positioned so that the needle is on the right side of the foot, as close to the right side edge as possible, because the bulk of our zipper is going to be on the right side of the needle. And again, we're starting about 1/2 inch above that second line of stitching. Back stitch and just get as close as you can to that line. You're not going to get right up on it, but don't worry about it. Now pull the zip tape out of the way once you pass that line of stitching and continue on down the chalk line. When you get to the end of the interfacing, back stitch again, and now let's change our foot. Home stretch, y'all. We've got our regular presser foot, moving our needle back to center. Take our garment back under the needle, and we're just gonna continue from where we left off. Now you can actually see the markings on the side of your machine. You can see that 5/8 seam allowance, so we're just gonna continue on down. Your garment will probably have a longer seam to finish than this demo fabric, so just keep on stitching till you get to the end of your seam. And there it is, our last line of stitching. You guys, look at this. Look how nice that is. Huh? Hasn't even been pressed yet. And when you unzip that, it stopped so nicely down at the bottom where we marked our little pencil mark. So there you have it. I don't know, maybe I should consider a design that zips up the front cleavage area. You guys can do this. If you haven't tried an invisible zipper before, I hope this makes you want to try one, because let's be honest, those lines of stitching were not the prettiest, but still, it looks dang pretty from the outside. Let me know down in the comments what else you guys might want to learn. Listen, and nothing is too simple. We all start somewhere. Whew. I think it's about time for supper. I wonder what would happen if I wished for a steak.
You rang?
Does that mean steak? I think that means steak. I'm gonna go follow my genie in a bottle. Peace out. Emphasis on peace. Checking the frame, one more time, checking the frame, yeah.